We normally begin simulcasting the syndicated radio show at prisonplanet.tv in a visual format, TV format, in the last 2 hours. But more and more, we end up doing 3-4 hours of the show, and we've just gone live at prisonplanet.tv for all the members that watch there. And then, of course, it's posted as an archive at the end of the show each day. And then folks rip it to the four winds all over the internet with millions and millions of views every week. Very, very effective. That's why they're shutting down. Google Videos announced they're totally shutting down. YouTube is going from a user format to a format that is corporate. And this is all being announced. And I keep telling people, and they go, oh, they're not getting rid of Google Video. They're not going to start restricting YouTube. Yeah, they are. And so we better start using these sub-sites and make them the biggest sites out there. Because YouTube is a thing of the past. While it's still big and somewhat still open, we've got to use it because that's where the people are. It's bigger than all the other big video sites combined. Going to Joyce Riley, Genesis talk show host, and coming up in about 10-15 minutes, we're going to play this clip at the 8 after. So I guess it's in 12 minutes. Joyce Riley continuing. So this lady had a note paid in full. But they don't care. They just sold the mortgage to another company that then claimed you own money. And I've seen so many mainstream news articles where they admit these fraudulent companies will just take people's houses that have already paid many, many times, just outright fraud, and then they even lose in court cases and just pay the multi-million-dollar fines, but that they'll steal billions and then pay millions. So you're saying in this case, you were already aware of this case then, that this was clearly fraud. So the police came in, they're in Missouri, continue from there.
I don't know her situation in paying. I do know that when Wachovia took over the mortgage, they then said they were not going to honor the previous mortgage company of saying that the note had been paid in full. So since Wachovia was not on the lien, did not have an equity interest, that's when she went to the judge. And she said, you don't have jurisdiction, you can't take this house because Wachovia has no room to do this. And that is what began to take place, was the fight with the sheriff and with the county to try and take her home. So Dawn Welch then prepared herself for this and decided that she had to make a stand. And it's time that people start making a stand and not just giving up, because it's so easy to give up or renegotiate or whatever, and she didn't feel that that was the situation here. She has lost her job. She has no money. Evidently, they were not willing to work with her, but I don't know that to be a fact. So I'm just simply saying that
you're working with somebody that was working with her, and you had her on today, and then you had to go off air because the show was over. We have this audio coming up. But Joyce, in the rest of this segment, the next segment, before we get to this audio here on the show for people, what you ended the last segment with is key. The number of homeless has doubled. They're now arresting homeless, making them live in shelters, charging them rent, saying they've got to work to pay that rent. We're talking about slave labor and the poorhouse, the debtor's prison being reinstituted here. And as the economy continues to be imploded by design, we have the IMF, World Bank, Bilderberg Group documents. They are engineering this by design, Joyce. A lot of arrogant people out there that don't care about this lady need to understand they're next.
That's right. Just like Gary Brownfield was saying, we were talking about this as being part of the plan to get private property. There is a desire and a goal to get private property. I don't care for what reason they use. Well, in this case, Dawn was standing tall. And I think when people hear this absolutely chilling break-in at her house that was live on the air this morning, or that was live with us this morning at 10:30 a.m. Central Time, people need to get that clip from Genesis. It's on the front page of Genesis now. It's posted there. People need to get that and download it, send it out to all their email, and get people aware of this. Because this is where we've come to, where innocent people who are doing nothing, who are not given trillions of dollars to bail them out, are now having to pay the price. And she paid the price dearly. Now, as we said, she had
Joyce, stay there. Got a break. Back in 70 seconds. $14.8 trillion, according to Bloomberg and AP, has been stolen in 7 months. They're online in 1 year out from the bailout to spend $26 trillion of your money. That's double the GDP. The federal inspector general says they don't know where the trillions went, and they're not going to tell you. The Federal Reserve's on record saying they're above the law. And then this isn't just people that haven't been paying their mortgage. In my experience, their companies are just saying you still owe when it's paid off, especially if it looks like you're blue collar. And then they just send the police out and they take your house. I mean, this happened during the Great Depression, too. They're also starting to call in full loans. They're starting to call in full notes. And like, let's say you owe $500,000. You did owe $1 million on your family farm you bought, or a piece of land you expanded your farm or ranch on, and you've paid off half of it. And they're now saying, you know what, there was a little clause in there we interpret. We're taking the property right now, unless you can pay $500,000 right now. And you're like, hey, I'm making my payments. They go, SWAT team standing by. SWAT team standing by. And then you become homeless, and then they now grab you off the street, put you in a government home. It's basically a prison, and make you pay rent. Joyce, in fact, guys, people won't believe me. That search engine, that New York State to make homeless pay rent. I want people to see this for themselves. Joyce, this is frightening because this is getting worse and worse and worse. And coming up in the next segment, we're going to play the audio here that's never before heard when you went off air today, but you still had her online from your radio show when this happened to her. This is I haven't heard this yet, but John Harmon says this is some really painful audio to listen to. Can you tell us what's coming up?
It's absolutely horrible. I mean, we were all in tears when we were listening to it. Everybody in our office at the Power Hour was in tears listening to this because it is just so chilling to believe that it can happen in America to innocent people. I mean, really innocent people. You know, the trillions of dollars you were talking about earlier that's going to, the Leave No Banker Behind Bailout Act. Anybody that needs the money that they want to give it to gets the money. And, I was saying to Josh this morning, do you know how long it takes to count to $1 trillion? If you, Alex, decided to start right now and count to $1 trillion, it would take you 42,000 years. That is so unbelievable of how much $1 trillion is. And then somebody's a few dollars behind on their mortgage payments, and they get thrown out on the street because they can't get a job here because we're too busy giving the jobs away to China and then bringing in the plastic food for our babies to eat and our animals to eat to give them kidney stones.
Well, let me add to that, Joyce. In fact, we just put up the headline, New York charges rent for working homeless. They find out, oh, you're homeless, but you've got a job. They rifle through them, and then they go and start debiting the little job with the poor person trying to get back on their feet, just like all over the country. People have a mobile home they're living in while they work, trying to get a house. They seize it the minute the tag's out, but then leave illegal aliens alone. But you guys can pull this up. Let me think of the exact headline. It's been all over the news that half of Congress doesn't pay taxes. Most of the Obama administration doesn't pay them and says they don't care. But more importantly, if you see these articles, they got rid of most of the IRS enforcers on billionaires, and they focused them on actually blue collar, which of course brings in a lot less tax receipts, but showing the white collar criminals have made it where there's no investigations of them, Joyce.
Well, and the question of who owes taxes anyway, that's another whole discussion of who owes taxes and what is income. That's something that's talked about. But
even within their system, they don't follow it. The law is for us, the schmucks.
Bingo.
And then they're the gods.
And you've got the poor getting poorer, the rich getting richer, and the confiscation of property. And like you were saying, Alex, with your own home, I think this is where it's at. I think that is the desire and the goal is to take property, to seize property. Don't just take it, to seize it. Now, I've got an update. I just got an update on the break a few minutes ago as to where she is, where Dawn Welch is, and what's going on with them right now as we speak in Hillsborough, Missouri.
All right, we're going to do a recap after this break. Long segment coming up. Recap, latest developments, play the audio here for the first time. Then we'll post it up at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, ThePowerHour.com, Dave and Joyce's site, and, of course, GCNLive.com. I'm sure I'll post it as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is coming up. You'll hear the real deal.
This is Alex Jones.
All right. I know I said wide open phones today and no guests, but news develops here. So your calls are coming up at the bottom of the hour throughout the rest of the show. I will do an analysis of why is Obama going to release new torture, as they call them, abuse photos. We'll be breaking that down. Latest developments on the economy, a bunch of police state news. They've introduced bills to arrest you under federal felonies if someone says your email site or your news story hurt their feelings. You can't make this up. It actually says it. We've been talking about that since last week, but it's racing through the House now. Other hate crimes bills to restrict free speech, and a violent extremist act that says if the Attorney General thinks you might be violent or a terrorist someday, That's what Rahm Emanuel said in the speech. We're going to play it later. But now they've got a law they're trying to pass where you can't then own a gun. The right-wingers, returning veterans, the American people. I mean, this is high treason. It's actually happening. That is coming up after we take a bunch of your phone calls. Joyce Riley, talk show host here on the Genesis Network from 7 in the morning to 10, right before Derry Brownfield. They had this lady on who said that neighbors were told the police were coming that day to evict her, even though she had the letter and the court case, note paid in full. They'd sold it to another company, Wachovia. They're saying, no, we're not honoring that. We're taking it. I have experienced this where they sold my mortgage 3 or 4 times and then just